Welcome to some new r/malicious compliance stories, where people comply to the letter, but not the spirit of a request. I hope you had a great day. The first story is called Balloon Animals in a Bar. Way back in the long ago, in the before times, mid-level chain restaurants would have these people rock around to make balloon animals for kids as they waited for their food. I was a teenager and needed money, so I did this for a while. The restaurant would pay this agency and they would tell us what restaurant to go to and when. Key to the story is that we were not paid. On an average night I'd make around $50 in tips over 3 hours. On special nights it could be as high as $200, but if there were no customers I'd make nothing. After working for several months I must have fallen out of someone's favor and I got assigned to a restaurant in the business district. I have no idea why they wanted someone making balloon animals there. The key audience for us were kids, and I never saw anyone under 30 there. The first night there I made $5, which wasn't even enough to cover mass transit to and from the location. After being assigned there twice in a row, I complained, but was told that if I didn't go there I'd be banned from any more assignments. The next week when I was assigned there, which was the third time in a row, I waited until there were a couple of guys at the bar that were tipsy. I go up and asked if they want balloon heads, no charge. They were hesitant, but I promised they'd be good. They agreed and I got to work. I broke out all of my skills to make these heads that were clearly people in a cage. The people were all pink and had prominent bubbles on the chest and derriere. An inflated balloon tied around the waist made for a bikini bottom, and a carefully tied balloon in their hand made a bikini top. They asked what it was and I told them a stripper. They loved it. I got a $20 tip, but more importantly they went to every person in the restaurant to show off their strippers' heads. They demanded to talk to the manager to tell him how awesome it was. This super uptight fundamentalist manager. The manager was majorly upset and told me to go home early. The agency called. Angry, but I used my most innocent voice to tell them I was just making what the customer asked for and I didn't know they'd make a scene. The agency said, well, they banned you from ever coming back. The next week I was back to another around $17 per hour location. The next story is called More Details. Back in the early 2000s, I worked as a software engineer on a team of software engineers. What this meant was that I spent a lot of time writing code, fixing bugs, /defects, /glitches, etc. The company's software releases go in cycles and regularly go into a cycle of fixing bugs for weeks at a time. My boss does a weekly status report that he sends out to his boss and some other middle management. He writes a team summary and then includes all of our status reports that we sent him by copying and pasting. When we were on one of those bug fixing cycles, my status report looked like week of month, year, worked on fixing bugs. The boss asked that I provide more details. Now my status report looked like week of month, year, worked on fixing bugs. List of bug numbers 1, 2, 3, 4. The boss had a sit-down meeting with me and talked about better details than just bugs, even though that's all I and the rest of the team have been doing. We had a small argument on this, where I told him that if I provide more details, no one's ever going to read it anyway. That didn't go over with him well. He basically told me that if it's related to the actual work, put it in the status report. My new status report looked like week of month, year, day 1. Working on bug 1, 2, 3, 4. No clue. Went to the break room for coffee. Ended up talking to John about bug 1, 2, 3, 4 for 30 minutes. Then talked to John about the bug he was working on, 5, 6, 7, 8 for another 30 minutes. On the way back to my desk, bumped into Jane, who asked me for help with the bug she was working on. Spent 20 minutes in the hallway talking to Jane. We were both clueless. Got bug 2, 3, 4, 5 assigned to me, but I'm still working on 1, 2, 3, 4. Both are high priority. Everything is high priority. Continued working on 1, 2, 3, 4. Went to lunch with Jack and Jill. We ended up discussing the bugs we were working on for over 2 hours. Got some ideas to pursue. Ideas didn't pan out. End of day. We'll resume tomorrow. Basically, I did this for each day of the week, and then sent it to my boss. He promptly asked me to summarize my week. I said, worked on fixing bugs. He never asked me about status reports ever again. The third story is called Keep All the Tickets. So I work in a food-to-go department in a semi-large grocery shop. Up until a couple of years ago, it was owned and run by a real jerk of a man, let's call him Boris. He was only in for a couple of hours a day, but would then be monitoring the CCTV and calling in every 5 minutes to tell someone to do something. And even worse, a couple of the managers would brown nose very hard. They'd side with him, say we were sneaky in our own department and probably were stealing. In my department, we would serve people their food and they would put it into their cart and have to pay for it along with all the rest of the groceries at the checkouts. We didn't handle money. We would just use a computer that would tally up all their items and produce a barcode that we could stick on their food. Now, the way the computer worked was anything we typed in, even if we cancelled it out, would still be transmitted to the checkout system. This way, the shop could record what and how much of each thing is selling. This meant though that items people never actually bought were still being transmitted and recorded as sold, but no transaction or money ever followed. For example, someone comes to Food to Go, orders several different items and I tally it all up, only for the customer to change their mind and not want the food anymore. Price put them off or any other customer is always white BS. Or sometimes customers just wanted to know how much a certain combination of food would cost, so we'd type it all in regardless of if they go through with it. This meant that Boris thought either the customers were shoplifting food or we, the staff, were stealing. I don't understand that logic, but I digress. To tackle this issue, we were told to start recording every single time items were input to the system, but no food was actually making its way to the checkout. Every time someone wanted to know the potential total, we'd print a ticket. Every time we mistyped or pressed the wrong button, or a customer changed their mind or wanted to add on more or remove something, we printed that ticket. By the end of the day, there would be dozens if not hundreds of tickets being recorded. Every day we brought in a 0-page covered, front to back and stickers to the office for the managers to go through. Their hearts sank every time. They had to painstakingly go through the sales and cross-reference with the codes of the tickets to make sure there were no stolen goods. This was an added job that was not quick, on top of an already huge to-do list the managers had in there. Sometimes several days or a week's worth would collect before they got to it. A few months in and this new process was abandoned. I don't know how they got around it, but another 6 months later and Boris sold the shop. The next story is called Overtime Compliance. Years ago I was working for a popular restaurant supply chain as a forklift driver. I held many positions there over the years, but took a step down from management to work at a nicer store for the same pay. Every night we were supposed to separate our pallets by type and leave them in the bag. A lot of drivers failed to do this. Recently we had gotten a new management trainee who, when closing the store, began to blame me for this. So one night, after I had finished up and separated my pallets, I had my department manager take a photo in front of them, giving a thumbs up. This was to show to the manager when he inevitably blamed me for bringing an unseparated stack. Sure enough, I got a call to the office with the new manager saying he had seen me bring an unseparated stack to the bag on camera. I pulled my phone out and said the only stack I brought back was this one, showing him the photo. He got angry and said he had video and he didn't care. He walked with me to the back room and there were a lot of unseparated pallets. He told me to organize them. I told him I did my job and I was going home. And if he had any problems, contact the store assistant manager who had made it clear I was not allowed to work any more overtime as I was getting too much already. The new trainee began screaming in my face so angrily that he is spitting all over me. I don't care, he's not here right now and I am not afraid of him. I then said, sure, I'll do the pallets tonight. I spent the next 2 hours separating the pallets. The next morning I rocked in and right up to the assistant store manager, telling him exactly what had happened. He said, don't worry about it, I believe you, and he is being transferred to another store. Sure enough, he got transferred to the store I came from 25 miles away. The funny part is that he already said he would never want to work at that place. He got himself fired about a month later. The last story is called Promotion. This happened in a company I worked at over a decade ago. I was a technician working on large machines. We had numerous clients and were assigned to a given site. The site I worked on was across a border, so I couldn't live near it and had an hour commute each way every day. I got no expenses or mileage for this because it was my assigned site. After working for this company for a while, I got promoted to stop doing routine maintenance and work on more complex projects. Most of these projects were on a site near where I lived, so that suited me just fine. However, the company told me they didn't have any budget to increase my wage, which is where the malicious compliance came in. I combed through their rules and regs as well as my contract. I found that if you had to travel to a site that was not your assigned one, you got paid as if you had driven from your assigned site to whatever other one you were working on. My assigned site was classified as being 1.5 hours from the site that I was doing most of my work on. So I was allowed to claim those 1.5 hours as hours worked on my timesheet. So every day I would put down 1.5 hours commute there, 1.5 hours commute home and 8 hours regular work. Anything over 8 hours worked a day was paid at overtime rates. So for those 3 hours commute, I was getting paid 4.5 hours. Because my contract said my assigned site was site A and I was mostly working on site B, there was nothing they could do about it. My country has pretty decent employee protections, so I'd have had to agree to a contract change, which I obviously was not going to. They told me numerous times they were going to change my assigned site, but until that day I quit, they were never able to. The length of my commute, most days, was 10 to 15 minutes each way. And with that, we end today's video. Let me know what you think about the stories. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the stories and today's video? I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. And I hope you have a great day. Stay safe. Bye bye.